I'm going to jump ahead a couple of slides here so we have a chance to cover the last couple of things we wanted to talk about. But speaking of something completely different, this painting called Ice Cut is up in the gallery. Ice Cut 1932. It's a large picture, 62 by 80 inches, and there's a certain lineage in Eric's work as to kind of how he gets to the subject. But one of the things that I found so intriguing about this landscape image is that there is no horizon line. There is no sense of deep space receding into the hillsides of New England or Norway. It's a very close-up view of a large hole that's cut in river or pond ice in New Hampshire in the winter. And Bruce and I were very taken by this because of the sheer just strength of the abstract form and the sort of minimal simplicity of it. Eric, why don't you give us a little background on the subject?
Well, it's many things at once. It's for me, it was a great discovery. Many years ago, I built a Finnish sauna, sort of a replica of a 19th century sauna on a pond in New Hampshire. And every winter, we use it throughout the year. In the winter, the pond freezes, and you cut a hole in the ice. The Finns call it the avanto, and you dip into it. It's a test of extremes, really. The sauna building. You're all familiar with it. The sauna building is 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Your skin is extremely hot, and you jump into this bracing water, and you're really sort of pitting yourself against nature. And I suppose it's one of the things that's sustained the Finns through many years of hundreds of years of hardship. But it's a common thread for all of the Finns. And for many years, I just stared at this hole, and I've said to myself, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And sometimes the sky passes over, and you can see. My wife has a beautiful series of photographs of the sky reflecting in this ice cut. And the discovery was a pretty simple one. Why don't I just make a painting of it? But it wasn't that easy. It was so far away from the work that I had been doing. I've been looking out instead of looking in and looking down and looking sort of. And it's a more conceptual exercise in a way. It's kind of it became an idea, and I generally don't tend to work with those in my paintings. So on one hand, it's literally the Finnish sauna hole, the diving hole, but it also refers to family stories of cutting ice. My father's stories of cutting ice during the Great Depression. So that's. And in fact, I've acquired all of these antique ice harvesting tools, and I cut this hole new each week in the winter. You see the ice, you see the scoring marks through the ice there. And if anyone's ever moved a block of ice, you realize what a feat it is. It's perfectly clear. It's a beautiful thing, but it weighs several hundred pounds, and there are various techniques for extracting it from the water. But my purpose in this is to sort of clear that hole so I can see both the surface, a kind of a veneer of reality, and then there's this black hole, and it's like the glass half full, the glass half empty. Some people see darkness and oblivion. Some people see sort of a passageway to hope in another realm. But everyone sees something, and what I've learned is that we're all inclined we're either drawn to it or drawn away from it. And
it's either a void or it's an object. It's a Richard Serra sculpture or it's a Michael Heiser void. It kind of goes back. In terms of minimal sculpture and painting, it reminds me of many different things.
Yeah, that was exciting to me too, to realize, my goodness, it's like all of these, it's Ellsworth Kelly and Kazimir Malevich and Goya, and artists that I'm fascinated with. I managed to find something right at my fingertips that kind of co-joined my work in the landscape with, love of painting and love of ideas that I've been carrying around.
But I also think that this is unique to your work, is that you're able to access these very formal intentions, these concepts that, painters have been creatively inventing and fighting for the last 100 years. and yet you're tapping a very personal chord using these forms. They resonate because of that. They're very personal, they're biographical, they're autobiographical, they're homage, and there's so much matter to these paintings. And I can't help but think that you're on a journey now, and that with paint in hand, you're exploring something very deep inside of you, very deep inside of the painting culture that we all share, and yet you're tapping into something quite personal. And I think your adventure's just beginning, really. But you've covered such fantastic territory, and it's exciting to see work like this and how it translates and relates and reverberates with Milevich and Sarah and so on.
The ice cut painting is a project that I've kind of, I've determined sort of the parameters for it. I'm going to make 10 paintings over 10 years. So in a way, I can I've never really thought about working like this, but I have been aware of sort of the entire trajectory of one's work. Remember when I started painting at age 22, I realized this isn't something that you stop. You start and you keep going. And if you stop, you're going to be distracted and go on to something else. And a project like this is sort of a project within another project. So I'm taking a period of time to see how they unfold, and I'm almost about halfway through that project.
I think I should just say on the upper left is work on paper by Goya from about 1815 or so that is called Two Figures Pointing at a Bright Opening. I don't even know if that was Goya's title or what some curator like described as.
Someone like yourself just decided it needed to be called something.
It was probably the registrar that wanted to know it. And that's a work that you had become fascinated with. Again, this idea of an opening, where is it leading to? And on the lower right is a work by a great Russian soprannetist or abstract artist, Kazimir Malevich, from 1923. And I don't think we're trying to say that Eric's paintings look like these, but that these are things we were interested in our conversations and looking through books to find that there were these affinities between some of the ideas, the compositional ideas, as Bruce was pointing out, and some of these other artistic traditions in modernism, not just in Constable and Cezanne and other earlier landscape painters.
The abstraction I like looking at, or I'm inclined to look at, it's just another way to emphasize the contrast between the ways that I think many of us, or most of us, look at things. I mean, we take things in on one hand in great detail, on the other hand in great generalities, and that there's really no one way of accomplishing anything, and that it's interesting to me where I'm a painter. I'm inclined to make representations of things, but the more that I do that, the more it tips into it tips into sort of depictions that don't really sort of show anything. That the showing and the representing is inferred, and then the paint itself shows us something.